There are places in North America where the geology itself seems to be malfunctioning. We accept that mountains are solid, static objects, they do not move, and they certainly do not produce their own energy. But in the Pisgah National Forest of western North Carolina, there is a ridge that defies this basic rule of nature. It is a long, low-lying mountain that sits on the edge of the Linville Gorge, an area so rugged and treacherous that early settlers called it the Grand Canyon of the East. This is Brown Mountain. By day, it is unremarkable. It is a brown, nondescript ridge covered in scrub oak and dry brush. But when the sun goes down, something happens here that physics struggles to account for. For over a century, witnesses have reported seeing lights rising from the dense forest. These are not vague, misty shapes. They are distinct, self-luminous orbs. They glow red, white, blue, and sometimes a pale, electric yellow. They do not behave like fire, and they do not behave like electricity. They hover above the canopy. They bob and weave like lanterns, carried by invisible hands, and occasionally they shoot vertically into the night sky like rockets before vanishing into thin air. This phenomenon, known as the Brown Mountain Lights, is perhaps the most scrutinized paranormal event in the history of the United States. While other mysteries like Bigfoot or the Mothman rely on fleeting, panicked eyewitness testimony, the Brown Mountain Lights are consistent. They are there. You can go to Wiseman's View tonight, set up a camera, and there is a statistical probability that you will see them. Because of this consistency, the United States government decided to get involved. The first major written report appeared in the Charlotte Daily Observer in September of 1913. A fisherman reported seeing mysterious red lights hovering just above the horizon. The report caused a stir, but the scientific community was quick to dismiss it. Their explanation was simple, logical, and condescending. The locals were seeing the headlights of locomotives from a distant train track that wound through the valley. The United States Geological Survey, the USGS, sent researchers to the area to put the matter to rest. They surveyed the sightlines, they calculated the angles, and they issued a formal statement. They concluded that the lights were indeed merely reflections of train headlights and automobile traffic from the chaotic roads miles away. Case closed. Science had won. But then, the mountain fought back. In July of 1916, a catastrophic weather event struck western North Carolina. It was the Great Flood of 1916. Two massive hurricanes collided over the Appalachians, dumping record-breaking amounts of rain. The French Broad River and the Catawba River swelled to historic levels. The destruction was absolute. Bridges were washed away. Power lines were snapped. Miles of railroad tracks were twisted into scrap metal or buried under tons of mud. The region was cut off from the modern world. There were no trains running. There were no cars on the roads because the roads no longer existed. There was no electricity. The valley was plunged into a total pre-industrial darkness. And it was in this total darkness that the locals looked out toward Brown Mountain. Without the interference of man-made light, the phenomenon became clearer than ever. The orbs returned. They rose from the ridge, pulsing with a vibrant red and white luminescence, dancing over a landscape that had been destroyed by water. They moved in silence, mocking the USGS report that lay in some office in Washington. This event is the cornerstone of the mystery. It stripped away the skeptical explanation. If there were no trains, and no cars, and no electricity, what was generating that light? To understand what we are looking at, we have to look at the ground itself. The geology of the Linville Gorge is violent. It is a thrust fault, where ancient rock has been shoved up over younger rock. The ground is rich in quartz and magnetite. This has led to the leading fringe science theory, piezoelectricity. Piezoelectricity is a real scientific principle. If you take a crystal, specifically quartz, and you squeeze it, if you apply immense mechanical pressure, it generates an electrical charge. We use this technology in lighters and watches. The theory proposes that Brown Mountain is essentially a massive geological battery. The tectonic stress of the fault line is crushing the quartz deep underground, and the mountain is discharging that stress in the form of plasma balls that float upward. It makes sense on paper. It sounds scientific, but there is a problem. Piezoelectricity typically discharges in milliseconds, a spark, a flash. It does not create a glowing orb, that floats for 10 minutes, navigating the tree line as if it is looking for something. And that is the detail that turns this from a geological curiosity into a horror story. The lights seem to have intent. If geology cannot explain the behavior of the lights, we must turn to the only other record we have: human memory. Long before the United States Geological Survey sent men in suits to measure angles and refraction, the indigenous people of this land had already identified the phenomenon. They did not see electricity, they saw grief. The Cherokee and the Catawba nations have lived in the shadow of these ridges for centuries. Their oral traditions are precise, passed down with a reverence that modern history often lacks. According to Cherokee legend, a great battle was fought in the valley of the Brown Mountain around the year 1200. It was a brutal, bloody conflict over territory between the Cherokee and the Catawba warriors. The fighting was hand-to-hand, intimate and devastating. The casualties were immense. The legend states that after the silence fell over the battlefield, the women of the tribe descended from the ridges to search for their husbands, fathers, and sons. It was pitch black in the Linville Gorge, a darkness that feels heavy and suffocating. To navigate the carnage, the women carried torches made of pine knots. They moved slowly, stooping low to check the faces of the fallen, their torches bobbing up and down in the rhythm of their sorrow. The Cherokee elders teach that the lights we see today are not rocks under pressure. They are the spirits of these women, trapped in an eternal loop of loss, still searching the mountainside for the bodies that were never recovered. This explanation, while supernatural, aligns disturbingly well with the visual reality. Witnesses often describe the Brown Mountain lights not as high-flying aerial objects, but as low-hovering lanterns that drift just above the brush, moving with a gentle, bobbing motion, exactly like a person walking over uneven ground holding a light. But the folklore evolved as the population changed. In the mid-19th century, as settlers moved in and the Civil War tore the nation apart, the story shifted. There is a persistent legend from the 1860s involving a plantation owner who went hunting in the gorge. He was a man who knew the woods, yet he never returned. His loyal slave, concerned for his master's safety, took a lantern and went out into the night to find him. The story goes that the slave searched every ravine, every cave, and every creek bed until his own strength failed him, and he died in the wilderness. The old-timers in Burke County will tell you that the single lonely light, often seen drifting near the peaks, is the ghost of that faithful servant, forever holding his lantern up against the darkness, waiting for a master who will never come home. Whether it is Cherokee widows or a lost soul from the Civil War, the common thread in all the folklore is searching. The lights are always depicted as active participants in the landscape, looking for something. And this brings us to the most unsettling aspect of the phenomenon. The lights seem to know when they are being watched. In the 20th century, as the area became more accessible to tourists and researchers, a new pattern of reports emerged. People began to claim that the lights were responsive. This moves the mystery from the realm of geology into the realm of biology, or high strangeness. A rock cannot hear you. A pocket of gas cannot see you. But the Brown Mountain lights appear to react to human stimuli. There are verified reports from park rangers and credible outdoorsmen who claim that if you flash a high-powered flashlight at the ridge in a specific sequence, 3 short blinks, for example, the mountain will sometimes blink back. Others have reported that loud noises, such as a gunshot or a shout, will cause the lights to instantly extinguish, as if they were startled. Conversely, some claim that whistling a tune can coax them out of the timber. This behavior caught the attention of a man named Ralph Lael in the 1960s. Lael is a controversial figure in the history of Brown Mountain, but his story is essential to understanding the weirdness of this place. He was not a scientist. He was a local who became obsessed with the phenomenon. He spent years hiking into the gorge, not just to see the lights, but to interact with them. Lael claimed that he eventually made contact. He wrote a book titled The Brown Mountain Lights, in which he made the fantastic claim that the lights were not ghosts, but extraterrestrial biological entities. He claimed they led him into a hidden cave inside the mountain, a place where the laws of physics did not apply. While most people dismissed Lael as a lunatic or a charlatan looking to sell books in his roadside museum, his descriptions of the lights' movements, their ability to hover, merge, and split match, modern UFO sightings with uncanny precision. Lael eventually died, and his museum fell into ruin. But the question he posed remains. Are we looking at a natural phenomenon that we simply don't have the science to understand yet? Or are we looking at an intelligence that has been inhabiting these mountains for thousands of years, wearing different masks, spirit, ghost, alien depending on who is watching? The eerie silence of the Linville Gorge at night does not offer answers. It only offers more questions. When you stand at the overlook, waiting for the show to start, you are not just looking at a pretty light in the sky. You are looking at a mystery that has survived the Cherokee, the Civil War, the US government, and the skepticism of the modern age. And it is still there, waiting. We leave the realm of folklore and alien encounters to step into the cold, hard light of modern science. But as we will see, the scientific reality of Brown Mountain is perhaps even stranger than the legends. In the last 30 years, the tools used to study the phenomenon have evolved from simple binoculars to night vision cameras, Geiger counters, and spectrum analyzers. The quest to debunk the lights has turned into a quest to understand a new form of physics. One of the most prominent researchers to tackle this mystery is Daniel Catan, a physicist and astronomer from Appalachian State University. Unlike the government agents of 1913 who looked for train headlights, Catan approached the mountain with the rigorous skepticism of an academic. He set up automated cameras that monitored the ridge every single night, recording thousands of hours of footage. His goal was to capture the data that human eyes miss. What the modern data reveals is that the Brown Mountain lights are not a single phenomenon, but likely a complex cocktail of atmospheric anomalies. The leading modern theory moves beyond simple piezoelectricity and proposes that the mountain itself acts as a massive geological capacitor. To understand this, we have to look at the structure of the Earth here. A capacitor is an electronic component that stores electrical energy in an electric field. It is essentially a battery that can dump its entire charge in a split second. The geology of the Linville Gorge is composed of layers of rock that are rich in magnetite form of iron and quartz. You have conductive layers and non-conductive layers, sandwiched together, pressed tight by millions of years of tectonic force. The theory suggests that as the Earth shifts, unseen and unfelt by humans, massive amounts of electrical charge build up deep within the crust. When the voltage becomes too high for the rock to contain, the electricity shoots up through the path of least resistance, fissures, and cave sand. When it hits the open air, it ionizes the oxygen and nitrogen molecules. This creates a ball of plasma. Plasma is the fourth state of matter. We are used to solids, liquids, and gases. But plasma is what stars are made of. It is an ionized gas that consists of ions and free electrons. Creating plasma on Earth usually requires complex machinery, like a fusion reactor or a particle accelerator. But Brown Mountain seems to be a natural, open-air particle accelerator. This explains the colors. When you burn different chemicals, they burn with different colors. The red lights, that is likely nitrogen burning at a low temperature. The white and blue lights, that indicates a much higher temperature, perhaps involving oxygen or trace amounts of radon gas leaking from the granite. But even this advanced plasma theory hits a wall. Plasma is inherently unstable. If you create a ball of plasma in a lab, it lasts for milliseconds before it dissipates or explodes. It fights to return to a stable state. The Brown Mountain lights do not just flash, they linger, they float. They maintain a cohesive spherical shape for minutes at a time, traveling horizontally against the wind. This has led some fringe researchers to a concept known as dusty plasma. This is a theory that suggests microscopic particles of dust or pollen can become suspended inside the plasma ball, creating an internal structure or skeleton that holds the energy together. If this is true, then the Brown Mountain lights are essentially self-contained, structured storms of energy that can navigate the environment. There is an even more disturbing hypothesis known as the stone tape theory. This moves away from geology and back toward the metaphysical. It suggests that the massive deposits of quartz and magnetite in the mountain act like a recording medium, similar to the magnetic tape in a cassette. The theory proposes that moments of extreme emotional intensity like a battle, a murder, or a tragedy can, be imprinted onto the environment itself. Under the right atmospheric conditions, high humidity, low pressure, the mountain hits play. The lights we see are not conscious spirits, but a holographic recording of the energy released during the Cherokee battles or the Civil War tragedies. It would explain why the lights seem to follow the same paths, over and over again, like a movie being replayed on an endless loop. They are not haunting us, they are echoes. So, where does this leave us? We have the folklore of the grieving women. We have the geology of the quartz battery. We have the physics of organized plasma. And yet, none of them fully explain the experience of standing at Wiseman's View on a cold October night. If you go there, you will stand on a stone overlook that hangs over one of the deepest gorges in the eastern United States. It is a place of profound silence. You are surrounded by people, other tourists, locals, skeptics, but when the sun goes down, everyone speaks in a whisper. There is a collective holding of breath. You stare into the void of the black forest, your eyes playing tricks on you, turning every distant star or airplane into a potential sighting. And then, it happens. A spark ignites in the middle of the air, hovering above the treetops where no human could possibly be standing. It swells, turns a deep crimson, and drifts slowly to the right. A gasp goes through the crowd. For a few seconds, the laws of the known world are suspended. There is no train track there. There is no road there. There is only the ancient, empty woods, and a light that refuses to explain itself. In our modern age, we have mapped the entire ocean floor. We have driven rovers on the surface of Mars. We carry the sum of human knowledge in our pockets. We have killed the mystery of the world with satellites and data. But Brown Mountain is one of the last frontiers. It is a reminder that the Earth is not a solved puzzle. It is a living, breathing, and sometimes glitching entity. Maybe the government stopped investigating not because they found the answer, but because they realized the answer was beyond their control. Maybe the lights are geological, maybe they are spiritual, or maybe, as the Cherokee elders suggested, they are simply the heartbeat of a mountain that has been here long before us and will be shining long after we are gone.